Hey everyone, welcome to The Common Thread. I'm your host, Mike. First off, if you're new, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I encourage you to like, subscribe, and even leave a comment if anything hits home with you. Let's build that community. Today's episode is part one of two-part because there was so much good stuff, so come back Thursday to see part two. This wasn't just any conversation, it was a reflection. It's about finding your voice when you were never taught to use it. It's about leading when you're still figuring out who you are. And it's about learning that your story has value, even the parts that you usually hide. You're going to hear from someone who didn't speak until the age of 5. And now they're using film, storytelling, and leadership as means to lift up their voice. This episode is for anyone who felt stuck in their head, silenced by culture, uncertain in leadership, or just unsure where to start. If you've ever asked yourself, am I too late? Am I enough? This one is for you. By the end of this, you're going to walk away with more than inspiration. You'll walk away with truth. You'll hear how one young person turned vulnerability into strength, how creativity became connection, and how Kairos, if you know, you know, became the blueprint for leadership that actually matters. So let this episode challenge you, let it move you, and let it remind you that the most powerful story you will ever tell is your own. Let's get into it.
Hello.
All right, so this is take two. The original episode was a fault of my own, thinking, oh, I clicked on the video that I wanted to delete, which was actually the original of what I had edited. So I spent many hours editing, and then all of a sudden,
Deleted.
gone. And there's
Yeah.
no backup.
I was a little surprised when Price texted me saying that we might separate your interview and episode into two parts because it was around like 3 hours worth
Yeah.
of content. And I was like, that's the director's choice. If it's going to be more than an hour, then might as well. People can just skip through and find the juicy parts. And then Price was like, all right, we might as well just combine everything together. So I was like, oh man, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a long conversation episode too. But then he sent me another text a couple minutes later. Your episode just got deleted. I felt bad for you because I'm like, you edited like a full 3 hour worth of like clips and for it to like just be gone.
I took all the key takeaways and then synthesized it, and then was like, okay, I have my post ready. I have all the stuff that's necessary to put a video together, just even the wording and whatnot for the opening, and then
That happened. But it's okay. I mean, we're here now.
So am I the new boomer? Am I going to be a new boomer, someone that can't handle technology?
You're learning right now. He's got this amazing setup right now. He's done this all himself. He's got the 2 panel lights and the ring lights, the camera itself connected to the monitor right there. I'm like, Price is on it as a filmmaker. All right, back at it again, guys. That's a break from our sponsor.
Oh, yes. Newly Worn, one of my favorite clothing companies. One of my former students started it and started posting stuff. And he had really good style in high school, too. But like him and I were short people, and there's not a lot of clothing our size. And so he decided to start making clothes that made him feel good and fit well. Now the clothes are amazing, and I'm always wearing something of his all the time.
By the way, this is like, I always see Price in a black shirt all the time.
Tell everybody how we know each other.
I'm Price's least favorite student.
Yeah.
I was a pain in the during Price's time at our high school.
Yeah.
Price was always one of those teachers where you can be yourself around and surround yourself with a lot of good people. And it's a great presence and good company. He always shows up every time, during lunches or retreat conversation. He was an amazing teacher. I met Price in September 2024. It was the second annual retreat for our high school called Kairos. A lot of seniors in high school or Catholic high schools, they do like those outdoor retreats for a couple days to reflect on with God, nature, and themselves, and with like peers that they never thought of connecting in the first place. And that's how I met Price. It was during a hike during a break time, I think. I remember it was a highway. There was like some big road that we were walking, and I remember Price just like with his black shirt.
Black shirt and a gold chain.
I walked beside Price, and that's where I started having a little bit of small talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, "Oh, this guy, yeah, I like his professionalism. Like I thought he was very serious and like very formal, teacher that just wants to get things done."
Everyone says that.
Yeah, I get that too a lot. So I'm like, I get this guy. And then I'm like, this is a teacher that I feel like we might have a lot more conversations in the near future. Price emailed me after our retreat conclusion. My friend who did a podcast back in the day,
Emailed you guys over the weekend.
or over the weekend, yeah.
After the retreat. And then we set up a time to meet
At the usual library spot during
my little corner.
your little corner. But like, it's such a convenient spot too. We went there, and that's where Price and I connected a lot more on a deeper level and shared a lot of common interests, like producing content, specifically capturing the why of why we want to invite our guests and talk about their experiences. Like me and Ethan, my co-host for the Goodfellas, we knew that COVID was taking away a lot of social cues and interactions. And so we just wanted to create a platform where familiar faces around the SF area have a conversation with us about like, how COVID's been treating them and what they wish, how they want to picture themselves in high school.
It's like a nice outlet of building community
Yeah,
through conversation.
exactly. It was like a good yap session for everyone who wanted to share their thoughts and sometimes be vulnerable, but also have fun segments. Because during that time, me and Ethan had no idea what we were doing. We just wanted to create content and maybe have a new hobby that could be useful for high school, and definitely paid off when we joined the newspaper club at our school. And then we transferred our platform to the school club itself. And from there, we had a much more organized audience. And so that's where we got the essence of how logistics work before executing a podcast. You got to consult with the guests first, making sure there are things that they don't want to talk about, but they do want to talk about too. So that's the gist of what we shared together with me and Price. And then we had a lot of conversations in between the fall semester about Kairos leadership. I was more than happy to do a leader retreat with all the other amazing group leaders. I knew that Price and I were going to work at some point at the Kairos retreats. And by the time March came up, that's when I got to be a group leader with Coach Annika. Our rector, Matt Spillane, led us with the other leaders too.
What's some of the challenges of you being a leader on Kairos that you encountered, just personally?
As a leader, you got to look at your audience first. You got to look at not just your small group who you're drafting, but also the entirety itself. Small groups, there's maybe 6 to 8 sessions throughout the entire weekday. But you're mostly going to be there with the whole entire group. And from there, you see this like common trend of like, these students are like, like athletes. Some of them may not take it. Cluster groups of familiar friend groups at the same time. There's a higher chance of them being distracted and bored of some of the talks that will be shared. Obviously, we did our best. I think we did our best. We exceeded a lot of expectations of managing a group that had very low expectations. I felt like there were a lot of conversations during the March Kairos, like, have low expectations. These members are not going to take it just seriously. But I was just like, I respect that, but let us do our job. You know what I mean? We can find other ways, even if it doesn't mean bringing religion, but we can also bring in relatable things that can still make them vulnerable, that can still have them raise their eyebrow. Like, maybe I can actually say something about this.
It's the human component.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember talking with my A-push teacher. I was like, I'm leading the small group, but I don't know if, and I was talking with Toby Doe about it too, who also like Kairos back in January. I asked both of them, I was like, I'm not sure like what kind of thing that I should input, differently, approach it differently for our small groups. I asked them and they replied, don't follow the script. I remember annotating in my binder, these are questions that deal with Christianity. Maybe I'll leave off like, 2 or 3 questions about that, but I'm going to convert some of these questions into more universal and relatable questions. I feel some of them were kind of like, thinking to themselves about, and it's an opportunity for them to like kind of speak about that. There's always going to be that person or people that participate a little bit more. So you don't have to go around in a circle. Maybe you can just point it at them, put them on the spot more so that those follow-up questions in between their answers, some other people will chime in, and it creates that chain reaction of like, this person, I feel like I can answer that follow-up question. And then that person reciprocates back at the same time. And that was kind of the pattern that I wanted to showcase. Overall, the most challenging part of just leading anything, like especially for Kairos too, establishing that vulnerable setting with leaders and retreats that are the same age as you, there is that big risk of people not taking it as seriously as people thought it would. So therefore, knowing your audience is obviously a big challenge. But also at the same time, don't lose passion in what you want to talk about from your talks too. Because the leaders are also signing on to speak in this platform, in this very gracious space with all the adult leaders that are also agreeing to talk about their life too, which is even more sensitive probably. So there's that level of trust that a lot of the leaders have to partake with each other. Remember last episode I said from an agnostic perspective or from a non-Christian perspective, I would definitely say Kairos is an experience where anyone is living proof, and that the most broken, most quote unquote broken, or like the folks that lost their spirituality or like lost their faith in a way, they can become greater leaders, in my opinion. Ones that are quiet the most, or those who are very expressive at the same time.
Whenever I build a team, I try to build an eclectic group.
Yeah.
I want people to be able to work together. One of the essence of Kairos is bringing people together from all walks of life, and you all realize there is a common theme or experiences or the same interest as somebody else or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You share in each other's stories to where all of a sudden there's that common thread that you all share. And so then when I build these teams, that should still continue. It's a little bit difficult because it's more concentrated. Some people are like, why did you choose that person? I don't understand. That's not for you to worry about.
Yeah,
That's for me to build a team. There's a reason why they're there. You don't need to know the reason, because potentially it's an opportunity for growth, more self-introspection for them to discover something deep within them that can be brought out. And it also helps build confidence to those that don't have the confidence or self-esteem.
Yeah, exactly.
And how transformative that is for certain leaders of just like, they've always been this nice, wonderful person on campus. They've always been wonderful and everything. But then when they let a retreat, they gain a whole new sense of self, a whole new sense of confidence. And it really built them up. And then they were able to leave with a different perspective or new lenses on how they see themselves, how they see themselves through the eyes of others, and as well as they build new skills or enhance skills or refine skills that will serve them well beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like for Kairos, as a leader, you're writing your own personal talk. In a way, you're putting yourself out there in front of these people that know your name, know your face. They don't see what's behind that. So definitely like
the depth of the person.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like that component was a good preparation for college, honestly. And there was actually one thing I wanted to share. During my first year in college, in college, there's a program called Big Little Programs for clubs, having a student mentor that helps guide you socially and make your name out there for the club, teaching you the pattern socially or logistically what happens in the club behind those closed doors. I have a film big who graduated from another institution. That was like our rivalry school. And she also went to Kairos too. And that's where we had like a 2-hour conversation. It was like the 5th time that we met. We automatically hit it off and like connected in terms of like, oh, you went on Kairos? Oh, I went on Kairos too. Like, what was that experience for you? And just exchanging that, we both agreed that there was a lot of like disguised common traits that we never thought of like unlocking and like, showing for a lot of people. And that was the given nature of what this program really does. I think as you grow older, you'll start to respectfully forget some of the main themes that were happening in Kairos, but the feeling still remains. I feel like the feeling still remains. It's bittersweet. I feel like for me, it's bittersweet. For someone like yourself, who knows how many retreats? Do you count? How many retreats have you been on?
I completed, I think, the 28th.
28.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's just Kairos. That's not talking about other class retreats.
So like 28 plus who knows how many other retreats that you've been on. You get this familiar pattern of how high schoolers operate, and you know how to, you probably don't get surprised by a lot of these turnaround events. You're just like, yep, that's exactly how we're going to work. And that's how we were all able to work together as a team, having that reassurance, and for you to really see the growth in all of these 4-day trip, and then coming back from it and seeing how we evolve and socially with other people. Yeah, I feel like it's a great takeaway for that, for Kairos.
What are some things that you think I've learned from you and that you've learned from me when coming to understand one another?
One of the big things that Price knows about me is that I hate talking about myself a lot. And that was a big thing when my talk was know yourself. And I was like, wait, that's the talk that you have to talk about literally about yourself. I'm like, I feel like, this person is much a better fit. And I feel like I could take on that one. And Price literally said, no, you're going to do know yourself. And then there were moments where in between that I talk with Price about like, I feel like know yourself is a very adult topic, because I just feel like we're still high schoolers during that time, and we're still figuring out our, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because we're entering college. Some of us don't even know what we want to study.
Right.
And there are those who are lucky and fortunate enough to know what they want to do. And that's a very grateful and lucky part about that. I was raised in a way like like talking about myself is just like really corny and like,
It was taboo in my family.
oh really?
Yeah. I just remember parents always saying, you don't need to talk about us. Don't talk about the family. Don't talk about what we do at home and all that.
Yeah,
They don't even know anything. We were very private, quiet, but there's reasons behind.
exactly. Obviously, privacy is a big terms
Mhm.
of like how we want to share ourselves in a way.
Yeah.
The way how I share myself with others is by not talking about myself a lot. I'm more invested in how their life is going. How yeah.
Well, what I learned though is that you don't want to talk about yourself, but you are okay with other people sharing what they know about you,
Yeah.
and because it's your way of like engagement, relationship wise, because it's like
Oh
this
yeah.
artist of you of just like where you will engage in conversation and you have an objective and everything, as long as you don't have to talk about it. If other people can talk about you, great.
Because
And,
yeah, because I feel like I share enough of like what people know who I am
mhm.
in terms, but I always like like when start up for conversations, like I always ask them like what got them into this kind of thing, their interests and how they're holding up in college life, or like just reminiscing about like what they learned about themselves, so that for me, I want to open the door for a lot of people to establish that mutual trust and to let people know that I'm someone who listens a lot more. And then when the time is right, maybe I can relate a thing or two. But there are a lot of different circumstances where people don't open up in that way. So it's a little hard for me to open myself up first. But again, it's different circumstances. But I feel like I want to give the floor to them. That's the way how I
What did you
operate.
learn about yourself by the push and the prying and me saying, open up, open up, open up. No, let's dive in further. What did you learn about yourself?
I
And even from that experience too.
I always say this to people, like I know a lot about myself from other people's personalities. I reflect or see a reflection or part of myself in my friends in a way, because having friends and having sibling like friends, you can safely call them brothers and sisters. It shows you that you're heard,
Mhm.
listened to, and at the same time, there are different, like, I guess, language or like communication patterns of how you talk with like certain people. So for me and you, it's always professional when it comes to work and locking in that. When we talk about movies and other cultural stuff and other tea that's been happening around the city. So I just feel like seeing a part of myself with others reassures me that as an only child, I'm not going through this stage alone. But I know at some point, and I hear this a lot, like the relationships in high school is a lot weaker than your relationships in college.
Mhm.
That's why I heard a lot. And I kind of got that glimpse a little bit because obviously there are a lot of high schoolers I haven't reached out to, or probably left on red for some of them, or that I just hadn't made the effort to reach back. And it's not that I don't care about them anymore. It's just I don't know where to start. Like a simple "How are you doing?" out of the blue, yes, just do it. I'm working on that right now. I'm hearing it. I know it, but obviously I'm doing nothing to change that. I wish I can at some point, and I wish I had the courage to do that. But yeah, just like that bit of a shyness of that introvertness just kind of kicks in a little bit, because I know that those folks, like through social media, they're having a great time than they probably experienced during high school. But I know that when their name pops up, like in my radar when talking with other people, or
Mhm.
I'm talking with new people and I see a reflection of those friends, I'm like, that's kind of like how my identity shifts here and there for different types of relationships that I have with
Yeah.
other people. So therefore, for Kairos, for Know Yourself, in a way I wanted to, but this wasn't a way of like shying away from my personal identity. There, obviously, I worked my way through Price's guidance and support as well, of like, it's okay to share this part of your life and transcend that into a more universal theme for everyone to relate to. For
Yeah.
example, sports trauma is a big thing.
Mhm.
I shared about that, but I didn't want to put myself like the first athlete to go through this kind of
Mhm.
experience. Everyone else goes through it, and
A
they have
lot of people do, actually.
exactly.
They just don't talk about
They
it.
just don't
And you
talk about it.
provided a space that allowed them to talk.
Exactly. It takes a lot of guts to do that, but at the back of my mind, I know that this isn't a rare thing for someone to say it's all right to share this part of your life. Other people will come to you privately and be like, hey, I resonate a lot with your story. They would admit that I personally don't have the courage or the space or the vulnerability to talk about this kind of thing, but I hear you. I understand you.
Mhm.
Maybe at some point, maybe in college or with my family during the summer or somewhere in their adulthood, they will revisit that. It's a motivational spark and an inspirational spark as a filmmaker to take note of. So I use that as a building block and a push of my creativity to, to those who did doubt, my talents and what I was capable of doing. I'll admit I wasn't a top tier athlete, but I did want to show up. I did
Mhm.
want to try. That's all I could take away from it. I remember Dominic, who led at February Kairos, shared these moments of his life. People in the group he never thought of interacting with came up to him and was like, yo, I actually really with your story.
Yeah.
And that I really want to say the same thing as, but in a confident manner. I mean, and so therefore, I feel like that's the common thread of what we share as students, high schoolers, specifically our class, and I'm sure the other future classes that will step up into the Kairos experience.
Yeah.
So definitely, like from my side, like that's what I related to because again, I want to do it for the audience, and for the audience, there's another thing that I do for the audience, which is make content. During our retreats, we have a particular thematic song that gets in the presence or
Yeah. These
gets
songs help enhance the talks I give
yeah.
beginning and end. They resonate with us because reasons.
Yeah, exactly. I actually learned and adapted how music also not only like immerses you into like the emotional setting, but also like it's a very vast cultural shared trait that, students get to share a lot too. So yeah, oh, I know that song. I know what that song is about, and I feel like he has something to say in a way. I picked the most indie song ever, like independent song by the Wallows, but then towards the end, I want to approach it in a different way. It's gonna be so film bro of me, but like as a film major, you can only do so much and have this itch in your body of like I want to show something that people can see and have this very emotional effect. I made a video. I would say it's like a Kairos documentary in a way of having like dozens of our class who's been on retreat and just have them have a platform like a seat just for like 5 minutes and talk about how Kairos gave them the perspective of knowing themselves. And you hear a lot of common answers, but some of them are different too. For instance, one answer was, I learned a lot about forgiveness. And then other things are like, I never thought about reaching out to this person. And that kind of metals into this paradox of there's no hierarchy in this school. People just made that up because it's the level of confidence that people share. It's just a matter of how you put yourself out there, and you know that certain people will take your vulnerability as a very personal thing and a very grateful thing too, because I'm very grateful for those like who shared their stories to me. They found that shared space and trust within me and the adult leaders. That's the rewarding experience of what I was able to, as I was press record and like, editing and like listening countless times with these like, students. And also in a way, it creates a solidarity of our class and that we actually care about each other in a disguising way. That's why making that video was a sign and hopefully a trend that these other classes that step up to the senior hierarchy, that they're all equals, that they're all connected in a way. It's just a matter of like level of, confidence through their body language or the way how they talk or the way how they dress or, the way how they present themselves, We all, we're all kind of different in a way, but at the same time, we're all on the same page because we're all just trying to get a cap and gown and leave. But on a positive note, the most nerve-wracking thing was showing the film, showing the documentary, and a lot of positive reactions, I feel like.
It was great. I enjoyed it because
Hopefully.
it's different, but also it spoke a lot about the fact that we do want to hear from you about what you know about yourself. How did you come to know yourself in some aspects or certain paths that you've taken, experiences, and share that with everyone so they can find their common connection or that allow them to explore their journey of trying to figure out a little bit about themselves at that moment.
Yeah,
Obviously, we
exactly.
don't want people to figure out, we're not asking people to figure out what they're going to be in 60 years. We want them to figure out who they are now.
Now, exactly.
And how does that help build a more stronger foundation to move forward beyond where we are at that point in life.
Yeah.
And so, but yours was really highlighting everybody else's, like, how did they get to know themselves a little bit? And what did they come to learn? That's even the questions that I always ask a lot of people about really reflect upon themselves. And I'm not sure if you actually answered my question about,
Do I know?
about what was it now? What did you learn from the experience of leading as a Kairos leader about your vulnerability about yourself?
It's a good question, actually. Sorry, I stumbled on that one. My bad. I feel like it's easier once I share what I wanted to share. My talk was, I think, oh my God, I kind of forgot about my talk at the same time. I name dropped a lot of folks in my talk who were cameos in my life. They helped me get a clear lens of how I see people.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the hierarchy thing. I noticed what I learned about myself is that you don't have to label yourself as this person in this specific chain, this social hierarchy that everyone just, suddenly said there's a hierarchy in high school. Makes absolutely no sense after coming from Kairos. And that's what I learned definitely, especially in my small group, because it was like a major social / genre shift of people from all different kinds of backgrounds. And I was like, yes, this is a great opportunity. This is a great way to prove that even though I'm a group leader, I'm still the same age as these boys and girls. So I'm going to find a way to like prove that there's no such thing as like the social hierarchy. And that's where I learned just asking these very lighthearted questions, these warm-up questions first to kind of get them going. That's how they open up a little bit. That's where I learned a lot in terms of asking them these very small questions first, because people tend to not say much when you start off with a very grand and detailed question, like you just asked me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's like starting. So just like how Bryce and I started off the conversation of like how we met early, how we met in the first place, and given the fact that we've known each other before this episode, that's how you normally start a key opening conversation. I learned a lot from Father Jean of how to be a listener, like actually listening and hearing them out, and that's how you create this sort of confidence of like these friends are looking at you as like not as like a trauma dump, a trauma dump machine,
Right.
but more so if they have no one else to talk to in a way, know that there's this Korean boy who wants to like sit down with you and like listen to you for 8 minutes. I mean, this is more than enough to listen and hear about what they're struggling with or what they're going through positively in their life journey. I learned that it's not the environment that's making it more complicated. It's actually just ourselves that's making the environment more complicated to set ourselves in.
Yeah.
Thinking about like, oh, this is going to be a tough audience. This is going to be a hard thing to navigate in terms of having them focus, be vulnerable. When you have so many other things to worry about, like following the agenda, what Price has to say, or the other adult leaders, your task as a leader, while focusing on this audience, you make it harder on yourself. So I learned personally that you have no control, or that I have no control what other people think about what I have to say, what the environment has to establish for them, emotionally or physically. You just got to let it be and stay true to what you want to offer to these folks. If there's a group of people that don't offer it, then so be it. But if there are those who do at the same time, don't think about those. I remember Maddie said, don't focus on the people that are giving you the look or giving you like the judgmental attitude. Rather focus on those who are part of your support system, so that it gives you the benefit of doubt to give back to them. It's not a matter of owing back necessarily. People who say, I don't have the urge to owe back to the community, that already explains to me that you're pretty selfish.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like, this is unconditional. Because Paul Donzi said like, it's unconditional love. Agape. Offering without even thinking, and you want to reciprocate by supporting those who supported you. That's how that's how your identity strengthens and your support system strengthens. Your creativity inspires too, in a way.
Yeah.
You probably learned a thing or two about designing your characters. Now you have a vast majority of personality traits to choose from in terms of.
When you mentioned the Father John thing, what was specifically said?
I remember Father John, I don't think he said this directly himself.
Because this sounds like a lesson that you picked up and has carried with you.
Definitely. There was this video that Father John showed us during First Search for Human Meaning. I remember it was actually a pretty good video because the title was something like how to actually listen than just hearing people out. When you're listening, Mr. Simon said, you don't need to have a full conversation for them to fully unload their trauma or their setbacks, but just give them 8 minutes. Just give them 8 minutes of their time, having nothing to worry about around them. It's just face to face for 8 minutes. Just share what you want. Just share what you want to say to them. And after those 8 minutes, like, let that marinate, let that digest for a second, and then come back the next day and be like, hey, I was actually thinking about what you said earlier, because that shows the person who said their problems or their setbacks, it gives them some sort of hope of this person actually listened to what I said. Because for 8 minutes, you could take away a lot. But if it's an hour-long conversation, there's so much stuff that you need to recollect and remember and digest. But if it's just for 8 minutes, that's enough for you to remember the main important things they talked about. So I thought, wow, this is actually a really good social strategy. I thought that was a pretty good lesson that he shared with us with that specific video. Because not only is very kind and very selfless to remember what people said about their struggles and like, relaying it back to another day or another week, it just shows that you care about this person with full compassion. It's very unconditional. They're not doing it out of pity, but they actually care because they give you the time, 8 minutes, to just have the floor and speak what's on your mind. But yeah, that's one of the things that I saw Diddy. Oh, him. Yes.
Simon Sinek. Yeah, it's him.
Yeah.
For instance, I don't know what I'm doing with this, but I'm doing the best I can with what I have now. And then I'm watching tutorials and learning from other
Yeah.
people, having conversations with people on how to do this better.
Yeah.
I'm literally reading a book about
Talk.
having good conversations. And I want conversations, at least on this podcast, to be informational, inspiring, and something that people walk away with saying, I connect with that, I resonate with that,
Yeah.
there's a lesson there, and I walk away with a takeaway. If you create a video and there's no takeaway, why did you make it?
Exactly. That's why the why is always important when it comes to like creating content.
Huge.
Like, yeah, you do it for fun. When making movies, for instance, I
Mhm.
remember I have a student mentor who's going to graduate soon. He knows a lot about the screenwriting craft.
Mhm.
And when I made my first script for the big project for our club, the first thing he asked me was, why are you making this an action genre? Like, why are you making an action film? You know what I mean? Like, the first thing I was a little like hesitant at first because I was like, oh, I forgot why I wanted to write this. And the first thing that came up was like, I'm doing it because UC Berkeley's never seen this kind of genre before. The most common thing that our film club is used to seeing is coming of age, noir, or a lot of mother themes. For this action genre, I had no idea why I was making this in the first place.
Mhm.
I was like, for me, it was specifically of making something that the audience had never seen before. But he said to me, that doesn't show why we should care about this. You're giving us entertainment action, but why do you want to make an action film? You're not doing it for the audience. There are some parts of like, your life, your complex life of like why you want to make an action genre instead of like a coming of age film. Because they could say the same thing. I want to make it for the audience, not just for the audience, but it was that genre specifically, or this theme of living a double life. I feel like as college students, you feel like an outcast straight up. You won't feel like you're in the right place for the first couple weeks.
Mhm.
That true hurts, honestly, because you're going to feel like an outcast at times. You're going to feel like they're not taking you seriously because you're just a first year. They went through the same thing and now they're on top of they're on top of like, their game right now. They're used to the pattern. And now they're sharing that same rudeness or like, now you just go figure it out. We're not going to babysit you. Sure, we welcome you to the community, but how are you going to make a name for yourself just like us? That's like the ego game.
It's like throwing the baby in the swimming pool and say, swim.
So like with my little tiny arms, I was just like, okay, the mindset is that I have to pretend to be like this person in order to fit the social interaction, the social pattern that they're looking for when we're applying to these clubs. I'd go on about Berkeley Club application processes, which is the most pretentious and redundant thing ever. It's literally like a job interview type thing, which I get for training purposes, but it's just like, we worked hard enough to get into this school. Now we have to face this pressure of like join these clubs or else what? You're just like focusing on your academia now when these clubs are going to help you increase your LinkedIn aura and the opportunities to work at Fortune 500 companies, you know what I mean?
Right.
And for you to go through this application process, of course you're going to be looked down on and you're going to have to pretend you're someone else. I made this film because if you think that you can handle both your personal life and your work life, our argument is that you're going to end up losing both. And you're going to be in the state of limbo and sitting here imagining what you could have been instead of walking into what is. We were able to make this film of like, and gangsters, because gangsters are cool. So I just like, but the thematic is like, living a double life should not be the purpose of making a name for yourself. Sorry, Hannah Montana. But towards the end, she learned her lesson where she was like, I got to stay true to myself, which is staying true to herself. You just got to stay true to yourself at the end of the day. And if people don't appreciate that, you can't control what other people think. That's how the Kairos component comes in of what I learned personally. You asked me that. And so that's how I was able to like, find this like, how it all connects together. You know what I mean?
It reminds me of what I just posted, actually, the video that I posted the other day about just like, people don't, are going to undervalue you or
Yeah.
not willing to see you or whatever,
Hmm.
let them. Like, who cares?
Yeah. Let them.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you're responsible for you and how you want to carry out your life.
Hmm.
And regardless of whether people receive you or not,
Yeah.
so what?
Exactly.
You're not there to owe them anything. You're only there to owe yourself because you're going to miss out on opportunity or you're going to create a name for yourself. You got to take those nutty steps in order to be happy with the way in which you're approaching your craft, your desires, your dreams, because you got to take those risks. If you're just too afraid to do it and you're so worried about what other people will think, guess what? The camera ain't rolling. You ain't
Yeah.
doing what you want to do, and you're always going to keep on worrying. When I first started doing this, I thought about doing this for 4 years. Actually, this will be the 5th year of like, okay, I really want to do a podcast and I want to be able to interview people and their stories, but I don't want to be in front of the camera. And I'm afraid what people will think. Then I realized, I don't care anymore. I had to cross that threshold of a new decade in my life. I care about my integrity. I care about how I present myself, but I want to be me. If they don't like it, oh well, I don't care. I'm not here to please them. I'm gonna keep on doing something I'm passionate. Whether this takes off, I do care. I do want it to take off, but I don't want it to be diminished because I'm worried about my perception.
Exactly. My counselor, her biggest life lesson she always teaches is you're in a community, whether it's big or small, there are always going to be people who like try to find these little small things to like, bring it down and like turn it against you.
Yep. Create a narrative that's not true.
Exactly. So unfortunately, we're going to have to face those adversities at some point. But at the same time, you cannot lose focus on why you're here in the first place.
Right.
You're not here to battle what these people have to say about you. You're trying to battle your own path to putting your name out there.
Yeah, you're putting yourself forward. Yeah.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with doing that.
I like the part where you said about taking risks at the same time. I feel like I remember talking about this in the previous episode where during high school, it was literally for me like it was following what other people were doing first. And then towards senior year, and I admit that I started late in terms of entering the film world. And that's where I began to like, oh, this is like, I get that regret feeling of like, I should have started this back in like sophomore year. I should have continued the podcasting thing with or without Ethan. But we had our time there, a good time, obviously. It strengthened us as like extroverted people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but like Ethan's in a great real estate fraternity at Davis. He's a PM or a chair recruitment where he reaches out to a lot of people. I remember during one meeting when I went down to Davis, like he said something about like the podcast really helped him, motivating him to reach out to people. At the end of the day, they're just people. Don't be afraid if they're going to turn you down or not respond. I mean, at the same time, I was hyped. I was very excited for him to take on this leadership position where he can use his voice and his confidence and what he's learned from himself, from his family, and his team. That at the end of the day, no matter how big, strong, how high, low your voice is, your aura is still there. Your dignity is still there, and you share that motivational trait when reaching out to these folks who are potentially good clients for the fraternity. Like, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. Like the way how he works professionally now with like other folks who are experienced, and he's trying to like, learn his way up like as a friend, best friend, like, truly a privilege to see that.
Yeah. I think when you say about I should have done this sooner, at least you're doing it now.
Exactly.
That's what's so important. You're doing it now versus saying, I still wish I did that.
Or I still don't know what I want to do.
Right. I feel like if you start something, it will evolve into something that which you may have not even thought of, or in hindsight, never was even in the scope of things. And so I know I waited 4 years to start this, and I'm still seeing it materialize. I'm also starting to see when I go on walks in the city where I'm like going, this could be something different, or this could evolve into this, or this could evolve this way. And I can see that this can potentially evolve into something else. I'm starting to bring in people that are sharing their crafts and things they're passionate about and like to talk about.
Exactly.
To me, I'm going in and going, I don't know anything about or poetry or writing skills or scripting.
Yeah.
But I'm here to learn. I think a lot of people are interested in just hearing how do people get into those kind of things. For you, I mean, how did you get into the interest of filmmaking and deciding that, this is something I want to do? You made a pivot at some point.
My parents had a very interesting way of teaching me English. Korean was my first language. and they were like, you know what, we're gonna hold off looking for tutors that can help him speak because our son is not speaking right now. I didn't speak till I was 5, honestly. I didn't learn how to speak till I was 5. That's why I started preschool late too, because they were just like, yeah, nah, he ain't opening up. I was literally a robot that just could not. The first movie, my mom forced me to go to the theater with her. Usually, very young toddlers, when they go to the theater, they would cry because it's a very dark room and it's a big TV that overwhelms you. My mom told me that I never cried at the theater. Rather, I was just like, still the muted kid I was, and just like, all right, whatever, what is happening? As soon as like, the stream turns on, I was like, wow, this is a really nice TV. It's a really nice TV. And there's a particular song that comes up called Married Life in the opening scene for Up. And that's where I started nodding my head a little bit. And I was like, oh, this is very nice. It's very playful. I didn't understand jack of the movie because I didn't know English, obviously. Like when people were crying around us, I was like, why are they crying? And the reason why my mom took me there is because it wasn't about learning the language first. It was about unlocking and channeling these hidden emotions that I never thought of unlocking in the first place as a toddler. Because usually, as a toddler, you would cry a lot or throw these tantrums, but I was just like a very quiet robot, just having no idea why I'm in this world in the first place. It was a very weird thing for me as a young kid growing up. My mom was like, I don't need you to understand what they're saying. I need you to copy what they're doing. The way how Carl Fredrickson talks in his grumpy voice, or Russell, Boy Scout Russell, expresses his extrovertedness and politeness. And then the other supporting animal characters too, the dog, Doug, amazing Doug, with their arms, how they move their eyes, their mouth. I started doing that. And then my mom bought the DVD for Up a couple months later, and I was watching it repeatedly. And that was also during the time where I was introduced to Cars, Toy Story, Ratatouille, The Incredibles, all the amazing animation classics, where, again, I didn't understand what they were talking about, but I was following the words. I remember one of my first words was ka-chow. I love, like, McQueen's, like very witty and, like very cocky, like, ka-chow, like, hotshot rookie racing in his first Grand Prix. It was one of the most amazing things I've seen in a film. And that's why it kicked in of like watching these movies again and again and again to the point it drove my parents insane. But also at the same time, pretty happy about, I think our son found something that he really enjoys. He's not doing it just because we're making him do this, even though we did, but he's doing it himself. So that was the first sign of knowing what I want to do with my current passion and youth. And as an only child, my parents were always out because they were working. So it was me and my grandma, or sometimes our next door neighbor who would babysit me with her cat. I just remember, like, the reason why, like, I was probably, like, just love watching these movies, like, like, coming back after preschool, having a good basis of, like, English a little bit with, like, help of tutors, but mostly from movies itself and children's books. It always led me back to movies, jumping to baseball, volleyball, like, athletic. There are always movies at the end of the day, or short videos. Just always caught my eye. Always caught my eye. I was very engaged with this. I love going to the theaters by myself. I know that Price has a very hateful thing about theaters, but we can talk about that later. I just love going to the theaters because that's how movies are supposed to be watched. You know what I mean? The reason why I make movies, I love movies, is because it helps me not to be alone. It just helps me and reassure me that these struggles and emotions, the anger, the sadness, the happiness sometimes too. Why am I feeling good all of a sudden? Why am I feeling down all of a sudden? Why am I in a depressed phase right now as a teenager with all these hormones dancing around? It's because these movies tell us these hidden things, these hidden themes, whether it's an unfinished theme or a continuous theme or a universal theme. It just shows that these writers and these directors, even the actors too, they share a part of themselves to visual storytelling of like, you're not alone in this process, whoever's watching, and we want to give this gift to you. You're not struggling alone.
It's interesting because I watch a lot of movies. I mean, I watch a lot to a point where someone will say, have you seen this movie? And you're like, I sit there and go, I think so. And then I have to go kind of like maybe watch a preview and go, oh yeah, I did see that. I kind of discovered the reason there are moments in time where I've watched so many movies because I want to escape reality. But then
Mhm.
the problem is the movies then resurface the realities of what I'm
Yeah.
dealing with emotionally, whether that's positive or negative in life, relationships, romance, whatever.
Yeah.
It resurfaces those things. Yes, I'm escaping reality, but then also it allows me to maybe perceive or look at my own issues in a way of maybe I need to approach this differently. It helps me reflect, which is weird because I find that common thread. And then all of a sudden, now it's part of that improvement of self, acknowledging, feeling, and expressing.
Embracing it too at the same
Yeah.
time. When I was watching, the first live action I watched was To Kill a Mockingbird. I remember I did not want to read the book for our summer reading, uh, as all other middle schoolers would say too. And then there was a movie about that. My mom was like, I don't think you like the movie because it's very black and white. It's all talk. Cameras are a little bit different back then, so the quality is going to be a little bit not as conventional. But when I watched Kill a Mockingbird, I watched it in one setting. And maybe it was the direction, the director place, because the movie and the book, it was literally the same. I think it was the exact same. I read the book because that gave me
That's very rare.
yeah, that's very rare too. They did the book and the movie justice. That's why Atticus Finch, played by the amazing Gregory Peck, UC Berkeley alum, like he's known, he's the face of like To Kill a Mockingbird in that film and book. Nothing was changed in the film based on the book, Harper Lee's book. So I watched it in one sitting, and and that gave me more motivation to read the book. And I was just like, and then that's where I was like, maybe I should adapt like a book into a movie. But I realized my creative capacity during that time as a middle schooler was very lacking. So maybe think of something a little bit more original. But I knew there was that particular idea of why they make this movie. Why did Harper Lee make this book? To raise this kind of ongoing issue of what's going on even to this century right now, when that book was made more than 80 years ago, I think. It is one of the most innovative films that I've ever seen in my entire life. To Kill a Mockingbird. It's definitely a classic. So that's kind of like the journey of movies. I actually have a fun question for you about Kairos. I know that this is a platform where we get to talk about literally anything, so I might as well just ask away. I asked Price when we were coming back from March, what was his top Kairoses?
Okay.
But I'm gonna reframe that question now.
Oh.
Besides me, obviously, because he knows I'm one of the favorite leaders, but not in any particular order. In our class, when we led our Kairoses, who would you say are your top five? Your top
Five what?
top five Kairos leaders,
Oh, I can't tell you that.
student leaders.
Can't tell you that. Can't tell you that.
So-
that just creates division.
I'm not trying to start anything, but I know the mental list.
People are clumped in groups. Excellent leaders, emerging leaders. Well, at least I gave them that opportunity. There are redeeming factors. There are also other factors that allow me to say, okay, that did work out to an extent, just not ideal. And also, again, yeah, that might be an opportunity for somebody to kind of like, oh, there's real world expectations when it comes to meeting certain, whether that's a criteria of an environment that you're supposed to create or a task that you're supposed to actually complete or actually invest yourself. Because also you can tell those that did invest
Yeah.
and actually took the time to actually take some initiative on their own. When you go to college, like you said, no one's telling you to meet these certain deadlines. Like, here you go. Here are the deadlines. The professors are up there teaching and talking, but a lot of the bulk of the work is on you to figure out how does this apply? How do I integrate the things that they want me to accomplish?
Yeah. Exactly. I can agree with that 100%.
Sorry, I'm not gonna be able to answer your question as in depth as you wanted it.
Maybe when the cameras are off.